Imagine a world teetering on the brink, a futuristic dystopia where humanity clings to survival against an unrelenting alien threat. Now picture a warrior unlike any other, a lone blade wielder, swift and lethal, carving a path through the enemy ranks with breathtaking precision. This is the world of Stellar Blade, and this is why it's poised to become one of the biggest PS5 games of 2024. Stellar Blade, an action-adventure game, got mostly good reviews from players, which put it close to the top of the PlayStation 5's user score results. Stellar Blade has gotten a lot of praise from players for its crazy fighting and unique character designs. Since it came out on April 26, thousands of reviews have added to the game's user score. The success of Shift Up's most recent game made it one of the most praised original IPs to come out for PlayStation and Sony in recent years. Stellar Blade is a beautiful third-person sci-fi game set in a future after the end of the world. People who play a lot of games probably already know about it. The action-packed Stellar Blade playable test and dramatic videos made a lot of people want to buy the game before it even came out. It was even #1 on the PlayStation Network's pre-order charts for the month of April 2024. As the days went by after the game came out, it became even more popular. Early reviews for Stellar Blade made it clear that it would be one of the biggest critical and commercial hits of 2024 so far. Now that its first week is over, Stellar Blade has become one of the best games for Sony's PlayStation 5. At the time this review was written, Metacritic gave Stellar Blade a 9.1 rating from users, which put it in the top 10 of the site's overall rankings for PlayStation 5 user scores, alongside games like Resident Evil 4, Separate Ways, and Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition. Notably, this put a lot of other big 2024 games, like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Helldivers 2, below Stellar Blade in terms of user scores. Stellar Blade had a few problems on the way to release, even though the game was a hit. A big topic of discussion in the community was how the main character, Eve, was designed. Some users were upset that the makers added some racy makeup items for Eve. Other players, on the other hand, have asked for large returns because they think Shift Up is censoring choices. Some users said that the makers changed a lot of Eve's clothes to cover up more skin because of public pressure. Later, Shift Up reacted to the claims and said that the final versions of the clothes in the game were not edited. The makers also denied that the game was changed to make reviewers happy. There's no doubt that Stellar Blade is now a great PlayStation 5 game, even if it wasn't restricted. A brand new IP could bring about new and exciting characters and settings. That being said, it remains to be seen if Shift Up will cash in on their golden goose, and if they can keep the good things about the game without changing who it is. In Stellar Blade, Eve is a soldier sent to Earth to get rid of the Natiba, a danger. They are really gross animals that can get really strong and mean. Taki and the rest of Eve's flying team are killed almost right away, but Adam, a scavenger, saves her. After that, she works with Adam and a guard named Lily to get rid of the Natiba danger and find out more about where they came from. The strong sci-fi setting didn't do much to interest me in this story, though. Eve and Adam aren't very interesting characters, and Lily often feels left out, even though her voice acting is great. Stellar Blade is about asking what it means to be human and how religion and faith can be used as weapons, but it doesn't really say much about those things. Stellar Blade isn't as good as some other story-driven single-player action games on the PS5 when it comes to telling a good story. It's mostly just a means to an end for Shift Up. The main goal is to take Eve to beautiful new places and pit her against a string of memorable bosses. Stellar Blade has great art direction, so this trade-off works more often than it doesn't. In performance mode, it runs really well, which is important for an action game like this one where time is everything. People have talked a lot about how characters like Eve look online, but Stellar Blade's killer monster designs have been talked about less. Every time I went into a new place, I was excited to see what the Natiba that lived there looked like. From flying starfish to praying mantis-like bugs that attack quickly, even enemies that are meant to be easy to kill have unique looks. With bosses like Taki, Shift Up builds on that strength even more, making them look even stronger. Stellar Blade is pretty, but after my original crush wore off, I started to feel that my feelings for it were only superficial. You can have memorable settings, characters, and foes in a game, but if the story isn't interesting, I probably won't play it again after the first time. Stellar Blade's fighting is great, but the story isn't very good. There are basic light and heavy moves that Eve can use to make different attack combo strings. She can also block to avoid damage, dodge roll to avoid attacks, and counter. This is what most action games are all about, and Stellar Blade does a great job with it. The combat moves more slowly than in games like Nier, Automata, and Devil May Cry 5, but players can still try new things and add their own style. The best fights are the ones you have with Natiba. In the beginning, it's hard to fight big groups of enemies, but as the game goes on, players unlock beta and burst powers that spread damage over a larger area. It looks good when you use attacks, combos, and abilities, but it's more like a From Software game when you have to dodge, block, and time attacks and abilities. That gives Stellar Blade its own action style that is different from the games it's based on. Once players beat Taki, they can access a strong battle mode that stops damage and lets them use even stronger moves. In Stellar Blade, the key to doing well is not just going on the offensive, but also knowing when to dodge, block, and use Eve's extra skills. When you dodge and block, you quickly level up Burst, Beta, and Tachi mode and keep Eve from getting hurt, which is a valuable resource that can only be recovered at camps or with the few mending items each player can carry at once. Stellar Blade is harder than most character action games because it has a bit of a Souls-like feel to it. The good news is that it helps people get better at it. As you play on the story mode level, you can turn on a feature called Action Assist. This function slows down the game and shows you on the screen what buttons to press to dodge or block. This not only helps players block or avoid an attack, but it also teaches them how to deal with certain types of enemy attacks. When I was having trouble with some of the harder bosses, Action Assist helped me figure out the best ways to block their attacks, so I taught myself to get better with each fight run after that. Action Assist is the best accessibility choice for a tough game because it not only makes the game easier, but it also teaches players how to get better. Even though the fighting is great and the levels look beautiful, the gameplay between fights feels a lot simpler. It's hard to move around on platforms, and most straight levels are just about finding a key or pin that can open a door. It's a completely boring design that feels like filler work in between the more fun fights and beautiful views. The two open-world-like places in Stellar Blade are made up of sandy wastelands where things don't get much better. There are side quests to complete, but most of the time, it feels like just checking things off a list. Even the simplest tasks need Eve to go back to Xian, which is where the vendors are between levels, to finish them. It took me about 20 hours to finish Stellar Blade and finish enough side quests to get to the real ending. People who want to get the silver prize and finish the game 100% could spend twice as much, but they would have to deal with boring story elements outside of battle. Stellar Blade's lack of depth makes me angry, which makes me think about the larger conversation going on the internet about it. It's likely no longer a secret that Stellar Blade is at the center of a cultural war on the internet. Eve is a classic example of a beautiful character that can be dressed in showing clothes. Some people say that because of this, all video game women should dress and look like Eve. Everything being said has the same flaw as Stellar Blade as a game. It's too simple. What's underneath that is what we should talk about. The loud talks about Eve's looks take away from more important conversations about Stellar Blade's weak story or bad design. These are the parts that Shift Up needs to work on if it wants to make something more than just a quick conversation around the water cooler. That's how Stellar Blade feels, a flash in the pan, even if it shines light. Stellar Blade is on the horizon, ready to slash its way through 2024's gaming landscape. Will it live up to the hype? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure, this is a game you won't want to sleep on.